Yes. All right. Recording now for everybody in the world. Yay!
Hello. Yay!
Yay! Okay. All right. I have some news and some other things.
Podcast brought to us by today.
What? Who is the podcast? I don't know yet. I haven't even written that. Okay. You know what? The Final Fantasy podcast is brought to you by the 1996 film The Island of Dr. Moreau. And that movie's really weird. It's a complete disaster. It's directed by John Frankenheimer. Stars Marlon Brando, who goes completely just ape shit with the movie. Steals it, runs away with it. This is infamous for being a disaster of a production. Val Kilmer was obviously drunk during the making of it. And the smallest man in the world is there too. How's that? That seemed like a good enough sponsor for the show.
Wow, you really sold me on that movie.
Okay.
I really want to watch it now.
You should watch it. It's
What
a
a great
fascinating.
commercial.
It's a fascinating mess. There's also a.
I'm so glad people sponsor us.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
otherwise, I would never hear about movies like that. And you really sold me on it.
There's also a documentary of the making of it called Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. Because originally this was going to be directed by Richard Stanley, who was a brief horror director for a couple movies. Currently going through a bit of a scandal because of abuse that came out like right after his comeback movie. But he was thrown off of the Island of Dr. Moreau and replaced by John Frankenheimer, who is a somewhat decent director, but not a good one for that one. He could not save that movie. Recommend both the documentary and the movie. So anyway, Final Fantasy. Yeah. One could say that the Island of Dr. Moreau was Richard Stanley's Final Fantasy. Even though he would go on to make a pretty decent Color Out of Space movie starring Nicolas
Well, I
Cage.
just looked it up and it's based on a novel.
Did you not know that?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
You've
I've
never
never
heard
heard of this novel.
Never heard of the Island? Isn't that H.P. Lovecraft? Or no,
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, my bad. Ugh, I knew I made the mistake when I said it.
Yeah, Color Out of Space, that was Lovecraft, but...
Yes, yeah. You know, it's these turn-of-the-century sci-fi horror writers whose names start with the letter H. Easy to mix them up. So I'm your host, Blue Highwind, and those were the voices of Technobliterator
Hello.
and HSC Mage. SomeColorMage, in truth. What would the H even stand for in that?
I have no idea.
Hecking SomeColorMage.
Heckin, SomeColorMage. Well, in H.G. Wells it stands for Herbert, so it's Herbert SomeColorMage. I wonder what H.P. Lovecraft, what it stands for. Let's find out. Howard.
Oh, shoot. Apparently,
Yeah.
it was, this book has been referenced in Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves, brilliant game, in The Witcher 3, and in Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, it's one of the more famous, like, science fiction novels. Like a real classic.
And it's referenced
There's a Simpsons
also
episode.
Yeah, it says the Simpsons episode here, and also says it's mentioned in Ruby, which could arguably... Yeah, I think at a stretch you could say that could be an honorary Final Fantasy, but I unfortunately don't know enough about it anymore to still say that.
I mean, Monty Ohm might possibly... Monty Ohm was a big Final Fantasy fan, as we know, with his...
Yeah.
Hey, the Broncos just won. 28-14. That dates the podcast for you. So
Cool.
Yeah. Broncos
Yeah,
should be...
very, very precise. Usually, we end up dating this to the day, but not to the minute.
Yeah. The Broncos should be 5-3 now. And that's a shock, because I thought they'd be terrible. But you know what? I'm going to say that because I called the Broncos the Cloud Strife of NFL teams, I gave them positive juice this season. And now they will achieve everything that Cloud Strife has achieved, which is being one of the most iconic video game characters of all time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I wish I could say the same about my own NFL team, but I cannot. They're trash.
Well, I mean...
They're mid-table mandems.
Speaking of Cloud Strife, he stars in a video game called Final Fantasy VII, which is a video game in a series called Final Fantasy, of which there is a wiki called the Final Fantasy Wiki. And we write for, or have previously written for, that wiki. And still hang around the Discord and do podcasts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are many ways to contribute and be part of the community. My way is to talk about Final Fantasy for like an hour and a half once a month. So it is October 2024. It's the spooky month. Has your October been suitably spooky?
My neighbors have put up the craziest Halloween decorations, man.
Like what?
There's one person's house who's got, on the top floor, he has a ghost, like, coming out of the top window, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other people that have put down, like, they have a bench in their front lawn where they have, like, two skeletons sitting at it.
Are they, like, posed in any way? Because I have a neighbor that has a skeleton
posed.
barbecue happening outside their lawn.
They're posed, and then someone else has blow-up dolls of all the Harry Potter characters and Boba Fett for some reason.
Okay, maybe it's not... I don't know if you call that blow-up dolls, is exactly what you mean.
What I mean...
There's got to be
Well,
another
whatever they
term
are.
other than blow-up dolls. Blow-up ornaments? I'm not sure.
Yeah, blow-up ornaments, something like that. They look like little garden gnomes, except they're made of balloons.
Okay, they're called inflatables, which
Inflatables. There you go.
also sounds like it could possibly be a fetish thing, so I don't know. SomeColorMage. I guess Australia doesn't get all that spooky, right?
Yeah, it's not really a big deal down here. It's something that the supermarkets care a lot more than the average person.
Well, that's how
So, like,
that's how a holiday really happens. Is once capitalism tries to sell you on it. You never know. Soon enough.
I mean, I am kind of grateful about that because it does mean that the supermarkets stop trying to push Christmas for half the year. Because sometimes they'll get really stupid about that because of course Southern Hemisphere, so the seasons are flipped. So the Christmas weather happens in July, and do not do the Christmas in July stuff. It's fucking cheesy as hell.
Yeah. The traditional Christmas surfboard is what they do down in Australia.
Sounds fun.
Honestly, I cannot remember the last time I saw a Christmas card where it says Santa's sleigh, but the reindeer have been replaced with kangaroos.
That sounds decent. I would go with that. I created a character for Hanukkah called Norman the Hanukkah Penguin. Maybe he will have kangaroos pulling along his Chevy 75. He lives in the South Pole, and he brings toys to Jewish boys and girls all across the world for 8 nights.
Yeah, the Chevy's probably a decent vehicle for that.
It is, yeah. It was reasonably priced. He knew a guy, got a deal.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Techno, what are you going to be for Halloween?
My girlfriend is going as Selena, as in Selena Quintanilla, and I'm going as Eminem.
Oh. Selena, didn't she pass away?
She did.
Yeah, it's a shame about that.
She was
That's
so
a deep
talented.
cut at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? You're down in Texas, so it might be less of a deep cut. I had my Halloween party like a whole 2 weeks ago at this point, and I was Kramer from Seinfeld.
Was it?
How was being Kramer? Or how was the party?
Yeah, how was it? How'd you like put it together?
Oh, I bought some clothes from a thrift store and like didn't shampoo my hair for a couple days so that it stuck in the shape I left it in. So I just need to comb it upwards. And then
Fair enough.
basically just dressed like a hipster and kind of did mild attempts at physical comedy, but I didn't want to fall over while drinking.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So
news for this month.
yeah, Final Fantasy is celebrating Halloween by canceling a video game. This is which game was it again? I actually have it downloaded on my phone so I can remember. This is Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. It's
Yeah.
now being discontinued.
Oh, right, that one's also dying. Yeah.
Oh,
That's the one that had a cameo from Ariana Grande.
yeah.
And then I think Katy Perry or someone.
I think you're correct, yeah. I played an hour
Wow.
of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and then I was too busy to come back to it, so I can only say that it was okay.
I say the exact same. It was not much to write home about.
It made me
Yeah.
really want to play Chained Echoes again, which is an indie game that came out a couple of years ago and is not a mobile game, and it's not a gacha thing. Because it felt like that exact kind of like, okay, we're starting on an airship, here's these two guys, we're doing tropes, there's a crystal, that sort of thing. Top down. Yeah, I will delete Brave Exvius from my phone right now. That's that app gone. Goodbye.
I believe
Yeah, I
that
would say,
one
like-
will still be going on in Japan. It's just the global that's shutting down. But considering that the people who are running Brave Exvius as well as War Divisions, Gumi, their company, has pretty much collapsed. So I'm expecting both of them to just completely die outright sometime soon.
Yeah. Interestingly,
I would say-
PocketGamer.biz is reporting that game made $900 million in revenue.
Right, which was just leading me into my point of I was shocked how big that game was because I don't know a single person who played it. I know plenty of people who played the City Opera Omnia.
Yeah.
And I actually know a surprising number of people who play Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which we get into that news? I don't know.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I
might
don't-
have known people years ago, considering there's a chart here telling me that the revenue peaked in 2017, roughly, with $200 million of player spending. That continued in
Crazy.
2018, and then it has been a downward curve. And 2024 was the game's worst year, and you can kind of see the diminishing returns, and they're shutting it down.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I was like, it's just, I don't know. I didn't know many people who actually played it. So to see that it went on for as long as it did and was able to pull in, like, these massive, like, celebrity endorsements was really surprising to me. So I'm actually kind of, like, oddly impressed with how well that game did. And obviously got a sequel, The War of the Lions. No, it wasn't.
The War of the Visions.
War of the Visions.
Yeah.
War of the Visions. It got that Final Fantasy Tactics sequel, so I guess I'm like impressed that it did so well considering I've never heard of this game. Or like I've never heard of anyone who played this game.
Well, I consider myself unlikely to know anyone who plays this, considering I'm in my 30s, and I think my generation just isn't as into gacha games as other people's are. Though then again, I have a good friend from high school who, when I got into that dumb Nier gacha game, he was like immediately on it and giving me tips for how to like re-roll, because apparently that's like part of the meta. When you join the game, you go and start multiple accounts, and then you kill the one. Yeah, you kill the one that doesn't. You kill the ones that don't get the good enough draws. So I actually got a level 5 Ash with 5 stars that were rainbow stars when I started the city of whatever the name of the game we were just talking about was. Brave Exvius.
Brave Exvius.
Yeah. War of the Visions is still going, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, there's the specter of death hasn't come through yet, but then again, Square Enix gacha, they always die eventually.
That's their purpose. I mean, all games will die eventually. In fact, it's natural that games die eventually. As a matter of fact, the thing that games last forever is becoming increasingly a curse on the industry. It seems to be what people are now blaming the failures of things like that really good Prince of Persia game from January, whose team got shuttered the other week. One of the best games of the year, only sold 1 million copies. And it's like, all right, you could play the brand new $70 video game, or you could just keep playing Minecraft forever. Or whatever your game of choice is. Final Fantasy XIV forever, I guess.
Like World of Warcraft, how long has that lasted by now?
World of Warcraft is probably in its 20th year, if not longer.
Yeah, thereabouts. The franchise as a whole is celebrating its 30th anniversary, and do you remember, World of Warcraft is the 4th game in the Warcraft series. It's been, and it's not like they took ages to come out. There's the majority of Warcraft's existence has been World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I mean, it was an RTS series for what feels like a second, and then boom, it's an MMO, and a giant MMO, big enough that got an entire South Park episode made.
Well, and
I don't think in-engine, but what looked like in-engine about it.
It also spawned a whole genre of video games after it, a completely different genre. It spawned MOBA video games.
World of Warcraft?
No, Warcraft 3.
Oh, Warcraft.
3,
oh,
yeah.
yes. I forget the twisted and dark origins of the MOBA.
Yeah, which I don't keep up with Dota 2 anymore, so I don't know if they're still offended by the term MOBA, but...
I don't think they are.
They used to be at one point, but...
Yeah, I mean, when the Warcraft 3 remake came out, you could tell that Activision had been kind of pissed that they'd let that opportunity sweep through them with the changes to the terms of service that basically give them right of first refusal for any sort of thing involving mods created in the game.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you know
it's
it's
kinda
better
like-
for it.
It's the equivalent of, after Britney Spears got big, basically Disney tried so hard to make their next superstar, like their next pop star, where they would have like all the rights to their music because they were so mad about missing out on all that Britney Spears money they could have gotten.
Yeah, that was never going to work out, though. It's not like you can own a person that way. Like Ariana Grande, she came up in the Disney mines as well. And
Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah, sorry. There's someone else who
same.
came up through the Disney mines, I'm sure. But it's not like she has to go and give Comcast like 10% of her income for the rest of her life.
Yep. Yeah, it was an attempt, but I don't know that it succeeded. But anyway, we're getting way off topic at this point.
Were we ever on topic, really? I mean, the topic was that a MOBA game, a mobile game that none of us particularly like is ending. And
Yep. Rip.
we can have a moment of silence for it.
Well, by mentioning Ariana
Whoa.
Grande, we're going full circle because she was in that game.
Yes, that's why I brought her up. Anyway, let's try again for the moment of silence for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. And that moment of silence has ended. Moving on to the next story. This is a big one. Though already, the fact that this is a monthly podcast kind of tells you how fast stories just sort of fizzle out. Moo Deng is now a big deal in Final Fantasy XIV because there is a pygmy hippopotamus pet you can have. And there was a brief craze happening at the beginning of this month.
Yeah, 'cause I can't even remember how old that hippo minion. I mean, I can look it up. The Hippocarpus.
Apparently, he can't. I was asking this on the Discord. He wasn't created for the game. He wasn't created for the Moo Deng.
No, that was added in. Added in Endwalker.
Okay, so this is 2 years old already. They were just well ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, acquired from a random drop from Venice Party. So yeah.
So when Games Radar reported this, which was back on, it was actually the end of last month, They're talking about how before all this craziness happened, the Hippo Calf minion cost 17,400 gil. But now, at the time of reporting at least, it was 300,000 gil. And there's lots of hacks and things you can do.
Me. At the same time, since it's just a dungeon drop, it's not that hard to get on your own effort, so I assume that price dropped significantly after a while. And it's also like a dungeon you have to do. It's an Endwalker story dungeon, so...
Yeah, I kind of fell off Twitter this month. I've been trying to move to Blue Sky, so if you were curious about the things Blue Highwind is up to, please go follow Blue Highwind on Blue Sky. I'm Blue Sky Highwind. It all fits, doesn't it?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a cool name.
That's not the name I've gone with, but that's the joke I just made. So I don't know if Moo Deng is still, like, the thing. But, I don't know. Like, it was cool for a while. People were really into that baby hippo. And then one day Moo Deng will grow up and become a normal hippo, and I guess people just won't care anymore. So what was the next bit of news? Anyone know what the next bit of news was?
I mean, let me just scan some things. Just.
Oh no! I got it. No! I'm dropping this bus. So there was a new Ever Crisis trailer, and there is a now baby Angeal, not a baby Angeal, but a baby-faced Angeal will be joining this game.
Yeah.
He will join the Riku-ass-looking Sephiroth, young Sephiroth.
Oh. God.
He just. The thing is, he just looks exactly like Riku. There's just no getting around it. Angeal has almost like that 90s mushroom cut. He's got like a center part, that sort of thing happening there. But not quite. Almost. He does look like he could be on Namek as Gohan. There was also a rumor that Nobuo Uematsu would be retiring after Neo Fantasian, which was a mistranslation of a tweet he made.
Yeah, it's just kind of a poor phrasing thing. Like, Neo Fantasian is like the last full album that he's like leading, but
Yes.
he's still doing various work here and there.
Yeah. So, speaking of Uematsu, he was he contributed to a major, I don't know how major it was, but this is an NHK documentary that began broadcasting on the 11th of this month. This was the Legendary Games Chronicle. It was a half-hour documentary about the creation of Final Fantasy I, talking to Hironobu Sakaguchi and a few other people. That was broadcast in English and was available on their website, so I did watch it. It was decently informative. I did not know all the things about everything. I actually didn't even know about the existence of a Shoku Shibuya, who did the pixel art for the game. I feel bad about that, because she's a major person. Koichi Ishii was also interviewed. People seemed excited about that on the Discord. And Amano, who did the character art, needs no introduction. Do either one of you watch this?
No, I didn't. I didn't watch that, I'm afraid.
SomeColorMage?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. If you are curious about the creation of Final Fantasy, I would recommend it. It is not exactly the most rigorous history document, I'd say. It reminds me a lot of... I don't know if either one of you would recognize this network, but... do you remember Adam Sessler, who everyone got so mad about? Yeah, so he was on X-Play.
I've never watched X-Play, G4, whatever.
Yeah,
because,
G4,
that wasn't a thing here, but I know way too much about it.
Yeah, I was trying to get to the name of the network because I couldn't pull G4, so I had to go that way. G4 was a video game network for a while. It also broadcasts a lot of history stuff, including a half-hour history of Final Fantasy that was less good than that one because it was made by Westerners and I don't think they were even interviewing any Japanese creators for that. They had video game history and they had video game review shows and all sorts of stuff. They had anime. Then at some point it just became replays of cops, nonstop, just cops endlessly, the TV show. And then they stopped even doing that, and G4 ceased to exist.
A lot of what I hear about American television, that just seems to be the natural progression of TV networks. They have an idea, and then they just turn into constant reruns of a show that's completely unrelated to the idea behind the channel.
Yeah, at one point A&E just became like Pawn Stars, just endlessly Pawn Stars, and that's like the name of the channel is Arts and Entertainment. Like, why are Pawn Stars even the thing? Like a History Channel had a long evolution that has been near and dear to my heart because I grew up watching History Channel documentaries. I wanted to know as much about history as I could, and you know, it's decently informative if you're in grade school. And then it became a whole bunch of occult bullshit. Aliens, ancient aliens, who really killed Kennedy? All that shit around like the Illuminati, and do you remember the Da Vinci Code? Yeah, a whole bunch of just smutty crap like that. And then, oh wait, that was the one that was Pawn Stars. History Channel was the one that was Pawn Stars. A&E was the one where they bought like a store. That was Storage Wars. Is what A&E was broadcasting nonstop.
Okay.
Yep, this is the history of expanded cable networks. This is how it always goes. One day,
I guess cable here is largely immune to that because most of the cable networks are like co-owned by the cable provider, of which, and like I mean the cable provider. There's no competition with that in Australia because nobody gives a shit.
I don't even know what's on regular TV now because I haven't had TV for like 10 years since I moved out of my grandma's house.
I only use TV for live sports.
Oh, I don't even do that. I go and steal it online.
Oh.
Yeah, I've pretty much only used the TV I have for the PlayStation and Switch, so...
Like, I do have a TV, and I watch things on it, but it's like streaming things, or if I wanted to watch, say, the Broncos, I will go to a website called and then totally legally watch it and just connect my laptop to the TV in the living room.
Yeah, but like, if I ever use my television to watch television, it's pretty much guaranteed that's going to be ABC, which is very, very different from the rest of what like free/cable television is. So. Yeah,
you know, it's a shame that there isn't more documentaries about the creation of Final Fantasy. If there was, maybe people would watch TV more. This is let's move on to our next news thing. So this came out. IGN's reporting this as of just a couple days ago. There has been a speedrunning hack, or a task, or whatever you call it, to basically save Aerith. They found a way for you to walk to the Forgotten Capital at the beginning of Disc 1 of Final Fantasy VII. You're somehow or another, like, hang on a chocobo and then get off the chocobo so then Cloud can walk along surfaces that he's not supposed to on the overworld. And then you can then walk onto the ocean and then go straight to the capital. Problem is that if you get into any random encounters during this, the game will completely crash because you're not supposed to be human on the sea. Also, if you do go through all this system, like all this nonsense, and Aerith is still in your party, if she's in your party and any cutscene starts, any scene at all, the game will crash because Aerith's not supposed to be there.
Because she's not supposed to be there.
Right, it kind of takes a while before the sort of fail safes to allow you to use Aerith after Disc 1 kick in, because that kind of stuff was always clearly a little bit half-baked, like they didn't know when exactly it was going to happen, so it's kind of inconsistent over whether or not the game accounts for that.
There is a 5-hour effort from a streamer called Ace Zephyr, who used pause buffering to go and avoid encounters entirely. The problem is that the skip saves 2 hours, so if it takes you 5 hours to get around it, then it is not a useful task. But more importantly, for us in the Aerith Will Live community, if you are part of that, maybe you can go and pull off some nonsense that will make no sense for the story of Final Fantasy VII in your PS1 game.
Yeah. It's also funny that Naoki Hamaguchi, which people know as is director of Rebirth, noticed IGN's article about this.
Yeah, and
His response was just, "Oh."
Oh,
Right.
Just like, what am I supposed to say? Of course you can do random nonsense to our games. It's not like it's not the story we're telling.
You gotta love that this game is approaching 30 years old, and we're still learning stuff about it.
Yeah, and that there's always new weird things you can do in a video game.
Yeah, I love that. That just shows you how enduring this video game still is.
So back on Aerith, Ever Crisis released some new costumes for characters, and you can be Terra as Aerith. It's Aerith dressed as Terra. Also, Tifa is dressed as it's Tifa dressed as Sabin, Cloud dressed as Locke, and for some reason I cannot figure out why Sephiroth dressed as Edgar.
Well, I guess it's the... Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm like...
That one doesn't make sense to me.
Why not Setzer?
But,
It's
no,
right there.
I will stay on that. I'm the biggest Monk fan in the world. I love seeing Tifa as Sabin. It's great. Those are two of my favorite characters in the series. Right. And, there's some people who were disappointed. They're like, oh, why has she gotten that one? Why didn't she get Celeste instead? And my answer to that is that, half of Tifa's moves were originally Sabin's moves. So It just, to me, makes all the sense in the world.
Okay.
Right. I get it might have been cool to have her in a Celeste costume. I get that. But Sabin is just such a good fit for me.
So you're a big Monk fan? Big Tony Shalhoub fan? You liked watching it on the USA Network? All 125 episodes?
The only thing I use the USA Network for is the Premier League in the morning. I don't know what that show is, I'm afraid.
Oh, you know what? There was a 2023 sequel movie called Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie that was on Peacock.
Oh, okay.
Technically, you should check that out.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess that's it for First Soldier. Next thing. Magic the Gathering.
/ Ever Crisis /
Yeah.
It's so confusing. Yeah, Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering. It's a card game. Extremely big deal card game. I remember kids were into Magic the Gathering when I was in school.
Yep.
Remains a big deal to my surprise. So Wizards of the Coast revealed their first 4 cards, and they plan to have a deck of all the main series Final Fantasy games from Final Fantasy 1 through Final Fantasy 16. So there are artworks of lightning jumping through a tunnel, Kefka playing with some goo in the sky, a chocobo carrying mail, and there was one more that is not in the Gamer article that I'm looking at right now.
There were 6 artworks here. There was one of Sephiroth, there's Lightning, Emmett Selk.
Oh, Titus and Yuna kissing.
Yeah, Titus and Yuna kissing, and then Kefka and Post-Moogle.
Yes.
I imagine we will eventually have a page on Magic the Gathering, but...
I'm surprised we don't.
We do have a page on Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Zero created it immediately after the announcement.
So I take back that statement. We do in fact have a page on Magic the Gathering, and I'm glad we do. But
and it's not much there because, of course, we only cover it in the context of relation to the series, which so far is just these 6 artworks. The full set is coming out June 13th, 2025. At the same time, they also announced a bunch of stuff about how their crossovers work in relation to the greater game that is not really important to us because we pretty much only care about the artwork.
Yeah, I don't really know how to play the Pokemon card game, even though I had so much of it, and I don't know how to play Magic the Gathering. There's also a Final Fantasy page on the
Me neither.
MTG wiki, if you want to look at it the other way around. Apparently, these Universes Beyond set is called Standard Legal, which if I played this, I would have any idea what that meant.
It's basically just game tournament rule sets. Just like they change. Okay, so last year, Wizard of the Coast put out this set as like a crossover with Lord of the Rings. And as far as anyone can tell, that must have proved to be extremely popular, because 2023 was one of their best performing years on record. And like when they did Final Fantasy set, they basically just announced, from going forward, all of the crossover sets we make are going to be considered legal in the standard tournaments.
Interesting.
Well, I can't wait for Wizards of the Coast to somehow or another blow this up, considering that's their main reputation at this point.
And half of the sets going forward are going to be crossovers. There's also a Spider-Man set and an unnamed third crossover set planned for 2025.
Star Wars, calling it now.
I wonder if they're gonna do something like that for D&D as well. Then, like,
what?
if it works out so well for Magic the Gathering, it's not long before we start seeing like legal, D&D rule sets for crossover stuff, right?
I mean, I guess if you want to see the signs of opening the floodgates, that kind of already happened, because the first crossovers they really did was that they started doing Dungeons and Dragons sets in Magic the Gathering, and put out splat books for Dungeons and Dragons that were like various shards in the Magic the Gathering setting.
So if anyone wants to do your Final Fantasy X campaign in D&D, I guess that's the way to do it.
I don't know if I'd do it in D&D. There's probably better systems.
Generally the answer is if you want to do something that's not explicitly in D&D and D&D, the answer is find a better game to use.
Wizards of the Coast also owns D&D, in case people don't remember. They have been blowing up the whole spot with the Baldur's Gate 3 developers. So now they have to find a new developer for Baldur's Gate 4 after they went and fired everyone. Hasbro owns them. They went and fired everyone that game company worked with.
Did so well?
Yeah, they went and they fired everyone that the game company had been talking with. And then
crazy.
Yeah, they went and they laid off a whole ton of people.
Fire, man. Like, Wizards of the Coast is probably one of their best performing segments right now, but the whole place is a fucking trash fire.
Sounds it.
You know what's weird
That's insane to me.
What's weird is I think Spoony, if you remember that YouTuber, the Spoony One, worked for Wizards of the Coast as a critic at one point.
That's to quote a certain Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that's a name I have not heard in a long time.
Yeah, somehow or another he came up in a discussion. I'm like, oh yeah, Spoony. I remember this dude.
Somehow Spoony returned.
Somehow Spoony. He has not worked in a long time. Most recent thing he did is he interviewed an actor who was in Phantasmagoria 2. Or actually, the actor interviewed him. He was like, this guy's been like talking to everyone who showed any interest in Phantasmagoria 2. And it's like, all right, well, Spoony's Let's Play's well known.
Imagine a lot of people listening won't remember him. That's how long ago he was from. But basically, he used to make Final Fantasy reviews, and he utterly despised Final Fantasy VIII and utterly despised Final Fantasy 13.
And 13 too.
And 13 too.
I don't think he finished his 13-2 review, actually.
Yeah, so he's polarizing, to say the least.
Yeah, he was from a segment of video game discourse, which I dabbled in myself. I can't say I'm innocent of this, where being a loud, angry person was a good way of getting attention.
Yeah, and it's not... and a lot of his sense of humor is extremely dated now.
Oh, yeah, extremely dated and offensive at this point.
Yeah, it's from a different time in the Final Fantasy fan base, and in the gaming fan base in general, I guess you say.
It is
Like-
the kind of critical stars, like, yeah, there's a very good reason the only two people you hear who had that hear about who had that style anymore is James Rolfe and Yahtzee Croshaw, and even then,
I was about to say
Rolfe
Yahtzee,
clearly
yeah.
cares a lot more about his film stuff than the angry video game nerd.
Well, no, there's
Right.
lots of people that still do this. It's just they make like 8-hour
But you
videos.
never hear of them because this all fucking sucks.
I know, but they make like 8-hour videos about The Force Awakens, that kind of shit. There are people who will not let that go.
That whole community, it still exists. It's just so like, it's so niche, right? It's just, that used to be the dominant force of like gaming discourse online, and I would argue it isn't.
You'd argue that it is or isn't?
It is not. I would argue like it's still relevant, but I think it's, at least from my perspective, it's so much more niche because they basically like polarized everyone, and you know, it's like these are the kind of people where like their whole grift now is like carving out an audience by like, as soon as a video game comes out where the protagonist is anything other than a white male, they're like, it's woke, and then say absolutely nothing else. And there's a lot of people that eat that up, but there's a lot of other people that have no interest in that whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't want to say, I don't know if Spoony would have been in that crowd.
No, I was going to
that...
defend him by saying he is not one of those people. As a matter of fact, he
but it's just like the kind
very
of people...
extremely liberal.
Yeah, he is.
Right, yeah.
He went through a long
it's
Twitter hole of being very, very anti-Trump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just the kind of people that, like, that discourse, like, stems from has gone out into that different area of the community, and the rest of it are less interested in that aesthetic, let's just say. The aesthetic of getting angry about a game you don't like.
Yeah. I mean, you could, let's say you're me, and get really mad about Final Fantasy 13 and complain about it for 6 straight years. I would not recommend that as a lifestyle choice. It is better not to do that thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, luckily we've had better Final Fantasy games since then.
Yeah. Do not... Like, I would say the defining Spoony moment is him going to E3 and getting a reaction to the new XCOM first-person shooter game they were making called The Bureau. And his response was to stand in the middle of South Hall screaming, "Betrayal!" And you know what? In fairness, the response of that thing was to make a real XCOM game. I'm not saying Spoony did that, but there was enough negative reaction that they eventually did reboot the XCOM series and made...
It's like how
I can't remember too much about that, but I have to assume from the timings that like Firaxis had kind of started on the idea by that point. But
I don't remember the timeline at this point.
Like it was kind of close enough that it doesn't seem like something that just spawned out of like an emergency response. Although,
I don't remember the exact timeline. It's possible I'm wrong on that, and I'm willing to be wrong. I can tell you that the Bureau released like 2 years after that XCOM game and got a reception of, why did you even bother releasing this game at all?
Yeah, I've never.
Yeah,
even heard
it
of
was.
So
it was
all you need to know.
Yeah, it was kind of a meh. Meanwhile, like Enemy Unknown / Enemy Within was a really damn good game.
Okay, all right. So the Bureau XCOM Declassified came out in 2013, and XCOM Enemy Unknown came out in 2012, and this game would have been like announced in like 2010. Oh, it was revealed as XCOM in 2010. Yeah, you're right that XCOM reboot game had to be in development, because even back then games didn't take 2 years to make. It would have taken a little bit longer probably.
Mm-hmm. Right, and in that case, it had been kind of a while since an XCOM game, so they would probably have been starting from scratch, so even longer to develop.
Yep. Yeah, they attempted to reboot it in 2003. I should play these XCOM games. The difficulties always scared me off, but I really like that Firaxis. I was going to call it an X-Men game, but it's just a Marvel game. Marvel's Midnight Suns.
Mm.
So, back to Final Fantasy. If you remember, we started talking about Magic the Gathering cards. This is... The artwork for at least some of them are credited to artist Wang Ji Li. There was a brief kerfluffle online that this had been made by AI. There's no evidence to say that.
Yeah, that was complete bullshit. It's not that Magic the Gathering uses AI. I mean, there's been times where artists have tried to slip through in the past, but Wizards has tried to avoid it. And it's more that Magic the Gathering has a shit ton of art readily available on the internet that has a very strong house style. The AI is trying to copy that.
I can see.
I mean, I'm sure there'll probably be some fairly distinct pieces in the set anyway, because they also commission a lot of artists to do a lot of one-off special works. I'm pretty sure there is Magic the Gathering art done by Amano in the past.
I think I remember hearing about that too. Amano does a lot of different things. Like he did a Sandman comic at one point.
Yeah.
Yes, Amano did paint a Magic the Gathering card, but this is in Japanese, so I can't tell you which one it is, unfortunately. If I could read Japanese, I can tell you what these cards are, but I cannot. Selling for $17 as of 5 years ago. Yeah. So if you got $17 5 years ago, you could have that card. Oh, here's a Kotaku article. Maybe it can tell me what the hell this card is called. No, it cannot, annoyingly. Thank you, Kotaku. So should we talk about our main topic? Because I think we're out of news.
I think we've still got a couple more news pieces, actually.
Oh, do you know news? Because I'm out of news that I have collated.
Yeah. Right, there was another dead mobile game this month, the Final Fantasy 15 War for Eos, which is one of those games we don't even really cover because it's the fucking shitty Clash of Clans clones.
We don't even cover it.
I had no memory of this thing. Clash of Eos?
War for Eos.
War for Eos. Oh, was this that it was like the builder? Like you would build a town, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was licensed,
probably.
But it wasn't part of the series, really.
There were two of those shitty Final Fantasy 15 spin-offs, and now one of them's dead.
Oh no, this is not the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have no idea what this thing is.
Right. The other thing, Final Fantasy 14 patch 7.1 Crossroads announced for well, they've said mid-November, but based on various event timing, it's very obviously coming out November 12th. Various usual 0.1 patch stuff and more story stuff. The first of those Final Fantasy 11 crossover raids.
There's Final Fantasy 11 crossover raids happening?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Sure, we brought this up before.
Okay.
A lot of the usual stuff. All right. While this probably won't be happening at 7.1 launch, this is the patch that's going to contain the new Ultimate raid, the Eden Ultimate.
Ooh. Final Fantasy 8 reference.
Right. Yeah. That will probably be a complete shit show because Ultimate raids are always a complete shit show. And also, they're also introducing a new type of high-end raid, which is so they're bringing out a Cloud of Darkness Chaotic. So this is basically a high difficulty 24-player fight.
That's a lot of people to gather up for a thing.
Yeah, basically the 24-player equivalent of Extreme, although according to Yoshida, they put the they put in charge of making this the guy who's notorious for making really difficult fights, and he eventually came back to them. I think I made it more difficult than you wanted me to.
Okay.
So yeah.
Is this going to be the thing where it's going to make, like, people are going to be playing this game for 30 hours trying to beat this boss, and then somebody's going to die of heat exhaustion or something during it?
Probably not that bad.
Okay.
I mean, it's like the 24-player fights don't usually tend to be that hard because it's 24 players.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've said before, with the 24-player content, of which the Final Fantasy 11 crossover stuff is going to be part of that, they usually build under the expectation that only half of the players are actually know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was designed with intention to basically be a 24-player version of extreme difficulty, so maybe it'll actually be challenging. They've said that it's a trial of a new kind of content they want to do, so see what they're going from there.
What do they mean, new kind of content? Like,
well, the basically just a lot of Final Fantasy 14 stuff is split into very specific difficulty tiers for the end game stuff. So like, you have Ultimate at the top, and then there's also like Extreme and Savage and Unreal, and like Chaotic's a new difficulty tier in there.
Okay. Well, best of luck for that. Are you gonna do that?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I'm having trouble getting eight people together to do the current Savage content. So, what else was there?
I gave you the Moo
what were you
Deng
asking?
news. That's about all I got for Final Fantasy 14.
A lot of it is just normal stuff. If there's other stuff to go over, I can go over it like next month when the patch is actually out. But for the most part, it's a fairly standard first patch of an expansion.
Okay. So I don't know. Like, do you want to do the main topic? Because we're already 50 minutes. We can just call this a short one. There wasn't all that much to talk about in October. Could save it for another month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine doing a short episode if you are.
Techno, what's your thought? Is he here?
I'm fine with saving it for another day. Like,
Okay.
I don't know when we'll next have a like main topic, really.
Well, next month is going to be the Game Awards, right? Or is it going to be the Game Awards?
Unless December's the Game Awards.
Yeah, but we'll know what the nominees are, so we can go talk about, what we think should be winning these things. Like,
okay, yeah, fair enough.
We
Yeah,
talk
we can
about
save it
Final
till, like,
Fantasy,
January
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, and then there'll be December, and we'll have to do Final Fantasy of the Year, of course. I have a theory what's going to win Final Fantasy of the Year, but I'm not going to spoil everyone on that one. Final Fantasy of the Decade, Final Fantasy of the Century, Final Fantasy of the Millennium. Who's to say? It was one hell of a game. Speaking of cards, Magic the Gathering
I just
is...
noticed you post in the podcast channel that fucking... I assume this is artwork from War for Rios.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You didn't even notice that? Yeah. Yeah, it's Sydney from Final Fantasy 15 with her boobs hanging out. Which is not that much of a variety. You know what? That's how she looks in that game.
Yeah.
So they weren't that exploitative.
I mean, yeah, relatively, because, that's how mechanics dress. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. This is accurate. When I take my Toyota to the dealership to get the oil change, that's how all the dudes dress. Exactly like
Clearly.
that. Yeah.
I just remember, like, just around the time when that came out, like, the whole Cindy thing came out, like, they said, like, the director at the time said, yeah, well, this is just what women look like in the South. This is just how they dress because it's so hot there, right? And at the time, I was dumb enough to, like, half believe that. But
Is that why you moved down there?
US. Right, and now I live here. I'm like, no, I don't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Go up.
Look, I just remember because like Blue brought up Kotaku earlier. Sometime before, like we found out that this isn't the actual Sid. This is the Sid's granddaughter. There's Kotaku had done like a crossover article with Jezebel, where like they got like the Jezebel to like rate the outfits of the various Final Fantasy Sids, and like so they go through all of them, and then it just ends with Sydney, and they basically just all leave the article screaming.
Yeah, that was back when those websites were actually any good, and people wrote for them. Jezebel, I don't think is even. Jezebel, I think got rebooted recently, or they like
Probably.
created their like successor website to that. Everybody who was any good at Kotaku was left a long time ago.
Yeah. Anything under that's still under GO fucking sucks.
Yeah. It's a shame
but
that the Kotaku in action people are actually accurate now. I hate it.
Yeah, thank fuck the Onion got bought out.
Yep. What is this? Oh yeah. All right. So yeah, for later, Techno. For later for that.
Yeah.
We won't know what he posted, but when we actually do that topic, which we haven't said what it's going to be, stay tuned. Keep your eyes on this space and keep watching the skies, because that's where the podcast comes from. It comes from cell towers that get projected down to your phone.
But not in a conspiratorial kind of way.
Oh no. We are filling this podcast with 5G, and we're pasteurizing it, and chemtrailing it, all this stuff.
All the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I'm actually recording.
Okay.
I'm recording this episode in the basement of a pizza place in Washington D.C. right now.
That's not true. You're actually an AI. You're a GW AI core.
Oh yeah.
And eventually Colonel Campbell is gonna start glitching.
I need scissors, 61.
There you go. It's already started.
Yeah. Raiden. When I was a boy, I was walking along outside, and I got kidnapped by aliens. What do you think about that, Raiden? I don't forget the exact whole speech he gives, but it's real weird.
They're from like a bunch of Kotaku games, I think.
What?
What? Konami games. I'm stupid. I had a brain fart. Konami games. They're from a bunch of Konami games.
Definitely some of it is like I don't think it's all just like strictly in-house references, but there's also not a lot of them, so good thing those calls are optional because they repeat a lot, although hearing it over and over again is kind of saved by the Colonel's delivery of them being really good.
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harikiri Rock. I need scissors, 61. There you go. That's the quote. Found it. Now, this is all deeply meaningful, because Kojima would never fill it with anything less than pure meaning.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But see, this ties back into us into what we were talking about earlier with the era of really shitty internet game reviews, because everyone hated Metal Gear Solid 2 because you weren't playing as Snake most of the time.
Oh yeah, and many of these
were outright wrong. Metal Gear Solid 2 fucking rules.
And many of these criticisms were
well.
explicitly angry because you had to play as a pretty blonde man, and people did not care for this.
A lot of people were fuming at the time with that. A lot of people were so mad, and it's aged really well overall. Yeah. Like, I still think probably 3 is still the better game, but it's hard to argue with how well that game has stood the test of time. As opposed to, they did try the exact same twist like 3 games later, except I don't think that's recovered yet.
Well,
like,
the Phantom
Pain, if it ever will.
The Phantom Pain's plot is blatantly unfinished. That's just like, they
think...
probably could have sold it better, but that would have required them to not fire Kojima in the middle of it.
Do you think in Death Stranding 2, it's going to turn out to be a fake out, and we're actually playing as Leia Sadu instead of whatever his name is, Tony Bridgers.
Norman Reedus.
Yeah, Norman
you know
Reedus,
what?
thank you.
If they do that, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, everyone loves Léa Seydoux. Great French actress, usually naked in her movies. You know, this is exactly what everyone's looking for in a star.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the trailers we've seen of Death Stranding 2 on the beach so far had just, like, kind of showed that they are really doubling down on the kind of crazy Kojima's usually known for. Like, I think if anyone wasn't sold after that one scene where in that trailer where Troy Baker's character is fighting a robot samurai baby, like,
Yeah.
yes, that is the essence of Kojima right there.
Mm-hmm. Is this podcast still happening?
Maybe.
All right. I think the podcast needs to not be happening. We've long strayed from the path of righteousness.
Sure, not a lot of Final Fantasy news yet.
Yeah.
But I think we will. I think this Game of the Year thing, I think that will have massive implications on the series going forward. Because I'm just saying, if it wins it, I'm just saying that's going to be huge for the series.
I don't know about that, but we will see.
I think it will. I think it will. It's just, you look at all the Game of the Year winners and how their sales have like gone up so much since that. Like,
well, I mean, It Takes Two sold like what, 20 million or something ridiculous.
20 million copies. Yeah, exactly. Like that, and The Witcher 3. Like, and by the way, I'm not saying it's going to do those numbers, but I do think it's going to be huge for the series if Rebirth wins it.
Okay. We will need to make up ridiculous bets for the Game Awards, which will be something we'll talk about next month because this podcast needs to end, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I mean, we can probably make ridiculous bets just from seeing the nominees. So,
yeah.
So
this is the Island of Dr. Moreau podcast, where we talk about the 1996 movie, The Island of Dr. Moreau, a movie that I've seen and I'm sure my co-hosts have definitely not.
Nope.
No, yeah. You know, it stars Fariza Bulk. She's a cat lady. If that's what you're down for. I mean, who isn't down for Fariza Bulk as a cat lady? In reality, this is the Final Fantasy Wiki podcast. It's at finalfantasy.fandom.com. I've been your host, Blue Highwind, and SomeColorMage has been your host. Technobliterator has also been your host.
Yep. This
is edited by Blue Highwind. And the music is by not Blue Highwind. That is by XPRTNovice. And it's La Montaña de los Jovenes Caballeros off the OC Balance and Ruin soundtrack. It's Mount Koltz from Final Fantasy VI. And, when we'll be back to you will be November, the end of November. An election will happen. So if there's never a podcast again, just know that election went really bad. This is our apocalyptic log. So, yeah. Hopefully we're back.
Hopefully.
Keep watching the skies. Good night. I'm going to bed.
The blue skies.
Yes.